Fantastic. Okay, I just want to say, I'm not social media trained, so... Is that the right word, Maylee?
Just media trained.
Media trained. I'm not media trained, so
your job is social media.
Okay, so I'm Jim, and thank you very much for being here today. You can be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with me, so thank you very much for that. Let me start off by giving you my credentials. I grew up in Asian kitchens from a very, very young age. I'm a 5th generation Chinese Malaysian chef, multiple restaurateur, most of which are in the top 10 and 1% on TripAdvisor in the world. I've also a sort of social media influencer. I have 14,000 followers on Instagram, 56,000 on TikTok, 140,000 subscribers on YouTube. Also have a cookery school, a self-published cookbook which I've sold 10,000 copies of worldwide, which is available on my web store, chinandchew.com, so if you'd like to go visit that, please do. And coincidentally, that's actually the cheapest online Chinese supermarket in the UK. So, now those credentials out of the way, I'm going to start with telling you my background so it gives you a bit of context. I grew up in rural Somerset. And when I say rural Somerset, my first words were tractor. Oh, the word tractor. I was going to say mum and dad, but they were tractor. And that's how rural it was. Me and my family were the only ethnic people in our community. When I was at school, I was the only ethnic child until my sister came along and there were 2 of us. That's literally, I mean, it was a predominantly, well it is a predominantly white conservative area, and their interactions with people from different cultures was literally going to the Chinese takeaway that me and my sister grew up in. Which brings me on to my next point of how I used to see racism. To me, it was black and white. It was either extreme or it wasn't, because my experience of racism was quite honestly brutal and violent. I was attacked physically many times by older children and adults. I was spat on coming out of shops. I had verbal abuse constantly growing up, again from grown adults, so it took something really, I'd say, extreme for me to recognise that as racism. It wasn't until social media came along that I realised it's not a black and white situation, it's a spectrum and it's completely across the board, and it's social media that opened my eyes up to that, because obviously I grew up in this small community, I'm part of that community, and it's the way things were. So phrases, stereotypes were thrown about, and that was just normal language to me. And then social media said, oh, hold on, this isn't okay. And now I've come to realise that there are nuances to racism that need to be shown, told to everyone. Now, in particular, for me, because this is a talk on racism towards food, growing up in a Chinese takeaway meant that inevitably I worked in a lot of takeaways. Just last time I was at uni, I worked at takeaways. And I came back and I opened my own up. And on my menu, I had no added MSG. Now, hands up here if anyone's heard of MSG. Fantastic. Hands up for any of you who have heard anything negative about it. Fantastic. Now, the reason why I had to put that on is for those reasons. Now, those negative connotations to MSG are myths. I studied biology and I wrote a paper on this, so I knew firsthand, coming back from university, that MSG was fine. Yet the social pressures and stigmas of Chinese food meant that I had to put no added MSG on my menu in order to make food for people, to make a living. Now, one of the main myths behind MSG is that people are allergic to it. That's false. Your body naturally produces sodium, and it needs sodium as an electrolyte and glutamate as a neurotransmitter. neurotransmitter. Another myth is that it's a neurotoxin, which by definition it cannot be, because glutamate is a neurotransmitter. So I knew all these facts, but I still felt that I had to put that on my menu in order for my food to be accepted. Now, these myths around MSG also filter down into quality of food that we produce, mainly meat. What kind of meat goes into our dishes? For example, on Facebook, I'm an admin on a group with nearly 1 million followers. And someone will post up, "Oh, I had a lovely Chinese last night," and then without a doubt, within 3 or 4 minutes, someone's going to post, "I hope there wasn't any dog in there," or "I fancied some deep fried cat tonight." Now that's obviously because people associate Chinese food with eating dogs. This also kind of always perpetuates in a modern, say, culture, TV. People like James Corden go on and say, "Okay, so we're going to do this game." Can't remember the name of the game, but if you fail, you have to eat this, or you have to eat that, which is traditional food in some countries. Okay, well, it's funny at the time for the audience, but then you've got to think, well, there's someone at home who's watching this, whose mum maybe made them that dish as comfort food, and she's not around anymore. So you've made a joke out of someone's valuable memory, and I think it's really easy to forget that. But I think it's important to know that that does exist. I also feel that. I've lost my train of thought now. Where was I?
Generosity?
Pardon?
Generosity?
Oh yeah. So yeah, part of Chinese culture is obviously food. Another part of Chinese culture, like you Bailey, is generosity. So lots of people, when they go for a Chinese takeaway, expect prawn crackers. Well, that in Chinese culture is a little thank you for using us for food, basically. Now, this is a bit of a challenging subject, because people will then go online, especially Facebook is probably one of the worst places for it, and they'll just go, "This place didn't give me prawn crackers, I'm never going back." Right? I know, I see it all the time, they're all over these groups, and essentially what they're doing, without even realising, is they're taking our culture of generosity and weaponising it to make us feel bad in order for them to use us, which, quite honestly, as someone that has happened to me in one of my takeaways, it's quite helpful. You know, I've had someone phone up and say, "Where's my free prawn crackers?" I said, "Well, we can't do that anymore because X amount, they take up space. I have to have someone make them, bag them up. Then there's the initial cost of them in the first place. Maybe 10, 15 years ago it was viable, it's not now." And then I felt really hurt by that, and I almost gave up because of that kind of sort of culture of expecting something for free. Which also, that I think hasn't helped in perception of the worth of the food as well. I'll spend 6-7 hours on one thing, on one dish I should say, so that would be prepping the stock, making the batter. If any of you have seen my videos, you probably can appreciate a little bit more that it's not just in and out, there's a lot of preparation that goes behind that. Then a pub, we'll get pie bought in, chips bought in, the oven the pie, deep fry the chips, then we'll just blanch the peas, and then they'll charge $12.95, and they'll think twice about that. People will then go to a Chinese restaurant and will gradually pay over £10 for a meal that's been handmade and taken all of that time to make, just because of the perceived value. Also, it screams to me that either my time isn't worth enough, or I'm not as valuable as the guy who runs the pub. And it's a very real thing, and it's something that I've combated by, I gave up takeaway food as to make my living from. I went to street food because that had a higher perceived value. Yet it costs pretty much the same to make across the board, which I find quite interesting in itself. So You can see the disparity there between the ideas. Also, when it comes to worth of Chinese food, it's people's Chinese food knowledge as well. I mean, I've told you my credentials. I kind of know what I'm doing. I go online. I teach people how to make Chinese food, Chinese takeaway food, Chinese traditional food, Malaysian street food sometimes when I get the time to do that. And without a shadow of doubt, I'll get someone come in and tell me what I am doing is wrong and that's not how to do it. And then I'll go, that's absolutely fine, here's why I think you're wrong. I'm never really that nice. And then they'll go, oh yeah, but Jimmy Oliver says do it this way. And it's constant like that. So I'm constantly fighting and having to push my credentials forwards in order to be credible, when obviously I was growing up and you know, this food isn't just a way of making money, it's food I eat at home. So I noticed, well, if you've ever seen my TikTok especially, I critique recipes that people tag me in. And I noticed something interesting. I thought, well, do you know what, I'm going to do a little social experiment. So I've got a white guy who has a high following as a chef, and I've got a Taiwanese guy who has a high following who's a chef. I critiqued both. They were both doing, not the same dish, but they were both doing Chinese takeaway style dishes, okay? Within seconds of me uploading the white guy's food, I had a barrage of hate. It wasn't even related to the food, it was just shut up, you don't know what you're doing, shut up fatty, that's always my favourite, shut up fatty. This guy knows what he's doing because of this, that and that, and I go, yeah, but this, I'm an expert in this, and I'm telling you that that's wrong. He goes, no, you don't know what to talk about. I then uploaded the Taiwanese guy food. That's been up there for probably about 2 months now. Still not one person has turned around and defended him. Not one. And I think that screams volumes. What that says to me is that when I look like me, I can't critique this guy. But when I look like me, I can critique the guy who looks exactly like me, and that's fine. And that's where we are right now. So I think I'm going to end there. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I've taught you something you might not have realised before. Maybe if people don't give you prawn crackers, you don't know why. Remember, this isn't just Asian or Chinese food. It happens. I've seen it happen across the board with all kinds of food. I call it like food snobbery, where people just judge without actually looking into context or anything like that. But most of all, if you take away anything from this, I just hope you know that MSG is safe. So, any questions?